Hi, my name is Jaserah. I'm a modest fashion lifestyle influencer. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, pretty much any social media platform. So what I share is primarily modest fashion. I am a hijabi. A hijabi basically means somebody who wears a headscarf. I'm Muslim by faith. It's a big part of me. It's my entire identity, and I like to reflect that in not only my character, but outwardly in the way I dress. So a lot of what I do is share hijab tutorials, how to dress modestly, what it means to be Muslim. And I share like a little bit of like the humor side of like my struggles being a hijabi in modern day America. And yeah,
I'm Tosh. I am a travel and family lifestyle influencer. You can find me on all of the social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube as it's Tosh Haynes. Primarily, my content focuses on Black family joy, family travel, inspiration. I grew up and aged out of foster care. And so a lot of my content is about like basically raising my children and being a mother, like a motherless mother. I love to insert a lot of inspiration into my content and a lot of hope for building a life of your dreams, even if maybe how you started didn't it wasn't great. Like you can kind of have whatever life that you want. And a big part of my belief in that is that I'm a Christian and I believe that God makes beauty for ashes. And so a lot of that comes through in my content. I try to be inclusive. And so as I'm sharing stories, like I may not outwardly say that I'm a Christian, but I hope that you can feel that in like the way that I express my storytelling, and the way that I hopefully like bring hope to the forefront. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. I didn't know that you grew up in foster care.
The day I was born, I went into the
Oh my
system
God.
and I aged out at 18. So I spent my whole
Wow.
entire life in foster care.
Wow, that is truly an experience that not many people go through. And you're so brave, and I admire you for the woman you are today and for having children and raising them without receiving that motherly love that you didn't really get.
Well, and what's crazy about that is that's where my faith comes in because even though I didn't grow up with parents, I still felt parented by my faith. Like I felt held by God. And I feel like the reason why I was able to make it this far is because I know who I am and I know whose I am. And that's like so cliche, right? Like you hear Christians say that, but like I feel like I've watched God guide me. Like his hand has been on my life as I've moved through things. And so my faith is like foundational to everything that I do, much like yours.
Yeah, and I honestly believe exactly the same thing that if my God, our God is the best of planners, right? And so we can imagine our life a certain way, but that doesn't necessarily doesn't mean it's the best way, right? Because he's the one who's planning it all and he has his hand with us at all times. And wow, that's so beautiful. I'm literally shaking. I'm trying to keep my camera straight, but that's incredible. So you said you're Christian. I'm Muslim. What are
Mhm.
some of the similarities, I guess, just as being humans?
Mhm.
Um, because I work predominantly with the Christians at my workplace, and on Instagram, my audience is primarily Muslim, and I'm guessing yours is primarily probably people who follow Christianity or Catholicism.
Yeah, I think probably like the majority of my audience is evangelical. There are other people that follow me, and certainly I follow other people who have different like faith traditions. I actually am genuinely like curious about Muslim culture and faith. I think
Yeah.
it's so it's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So, there's definitely different sects in Islam, right? As with many religions, there's like different groups. So I identify as a Sunni Muslim. There's also Shia. I honestly don't know too much about them. I like to think that we're all the same because there's minor differences that kind of split us apart, but I think that's more like politics. But if you look at the root of the religion, it's based off of the same pillars, right? So we believe in one God. We call him Allah, but that's just the Arabic version of God. It's the same God that all of you guys believe in, and then we believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was his last messenger. So that is primarily it. We don't associate any partners with him. I think that's the biggest difference between Christianity and Islam. So I think you guys believe in the Trinity, Jesus, the
That's
Holy Spirit.
Yes. Yep.
and God. We don't believe that we don't believe that God has any children, parents, like no associations at all. We believe that He's this great entity that is different from us, that doesn't have these connections or um, prodigy and stuff like that. So, yeah, we believe Jesus was just another prophet. So, part of being Muslim, a lot of it is just being a good person. When it comes down to it, what the Quran is teaching you is how to be the best person in this life and the next. We believe there's a hereafter, and good deeds will take you to heaven, and bad deeds will take you to hell. But the gist of it all is,
Similar, right?
yeah,
It's like
okay,
life on earth here in Christianity is really practiced for life in heaven. And this is not the best. This is not the
right,
best that God had for us. Like, this is the world in sin. And even though like we're here and we are like so amazed by like the beauty of the earth and like relationships, like this is actually life in under a curse. And like
yeah.
what we're doing is like practicing for the good life, like the life that is to come in heaven.
Yeah. You have a lot of similarities between Christianity and Islam. I think the only honestly differentiator is the Trinity and the standalone God.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so your husband is Muslim?
He is. He grew up Nation of Islam, which
Okay.
is a little bit different, I think, from like traditional like Islam, because I feel like Nation of Islam was kind of formed. I don't know like a ton, so I feel like I don't want to misstep or step out of turn.
Mhm.
But I know that there was like a Black movement in the United States, like at a certain time, maybe like I don't even know when it started. I wish I would have done a little more research before because I do not want to say the wrong things. But
Right.
he did grow up like Muslim and he has like a Arabic name. His mom does too, and all of his cousins have like Muslim names and they practice and they have uh I guess maybe chapters of the Quran on the wall at the house, so it is like a part of their culture,
Lifestyle.
how he grew
Yeah.
up, his lifestyle. He's not like practicing
Mhm.
like on a regular basis, like not anything like that, but it's very much like a core, a foundation of his life. And as we pray and stuff, like he's he's prays to Allah and
Mm.
they don't eat pork, like same kind of like practices, being religious, spiritual, and being at the forefront of a secular industry, like influencing, like how does that feel for you?
Okay. I'll be completely honest. When I first started, it was a very unsaturated space. There weren't a lot of Muslim bloggers or hijabi bloggers at all. So when I first started, I felt out of place, right? Like I was literally comparing myself to the girl next door, which was like a white woman, a non-POC, a non-person of color. And I felt so different. I felt like nothing I wore matched their style, right? What was trending wouldn't fit with my lifestyle because I'm a hijabi, so I have to be more modest and I have to cover up. And I don't know, a part of me just felt like it wasn't my place. There were so many times that I wanted to just kind of step away because I'm like, why am I doing this? Because this is not what a Muslim girl does. That's kind of what I just thought because there was no other Muslim girl in the space. There were like a couple really big Muslim bloggers. They also wore hijab, but it was kind of like they were the
Right,
anomalies,
right, right.
right?
Because there's always only space for one, right? So
Yeah, I never thought like there would ever be space for more. So long story short, people in my community actually would always ask me, how do you wear your hijab? Like, how do you tie it the way you do? I had a very different prominent style back then. And so I was like constantly pulling girls into the bathroom and like undoing my hijab and showing them how to retie it. And it got to the point where my sister actually started before I did. She started a blog post. She started a blog and made a blog post of how to tie your hijab. And she sent everyone from our community to that video. She's like, just go watch that. And so she started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's when it clicked. I'm like, I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to feel like I don't belong here. There's room for everyone. I don't like look like the next person, but that's my strength, right? And so
mhm.
that's how I got started into it. Copied my sister, like the annoying little sister thing. I copied her, and I started my own blog. And yeah, I just took off from there because there is a huge audience out there, Muslim hijabis or Muslim girls who wanted to relate to someone and they didn't have anyone. And so the following naturally just progressively grew increasingly over time. And yeah, I'm so happy I found a community that can relate to me and I can relate to them and I can share my experiences and trials and errors. And that was my story.
Love it. I was just on your YouTube and I was reading some of the comments on one of your videos, and there was a girl that was like, I'm actually Christian and I don't know a lot about your Muslim faith. She said, but I feel like when I watch your videos, I'm talking to a friend. And I thought that was like so beautiful.
Oh my God. I actually know exactly what comment you're talking about. I read it and I literally had tears in my eyes. I was like, this is what I want. I
Right.
want people to feel like they're part of a community regardless of faith,
Right.
regardless of ethnicity. Like, I don't want these barriers to be there because although you and I are different, we have so much similarities. We have so many things that we can
I
talk
think we
about.
might even actually have more in common than we have different. And like
Yeah.
ultimately, both of our faiths call us to be a higher being, to walk in the world like in kindness and in love. And like, what could be better than that? Which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay, so you're also on Instagram, right?
I am.
How has being religious helped you as a content creator?
Who helped me? I don't know, but kept me honest and kept me integrous. Absolutely.
Wow.
I think that like social media, especially like this Instagram content creator influencer world, can really be tricky to navigate. And I think with all of the attention and all of the constant flattery and the gifts and the events and stuff, like you could tend to like become more haughty than you should, or kind of get lost in the sauce, as you will. And I think for me, having a faith grounds me and reminds me like this is not real. Like this is
Yeah.
an opportunity where I get to show up and I get to like use this platform to serve people, because that's how I see it. I see it as an opportunity to give back, to serve, to connect, to love on people. But I always have to like come back to like, this is who I am. I am not, my value is not based on this, on the things that I receive, on the compliments that I receive, because I mean we've seen people, right, on social media like completely lose themselves in it and like
Mm.
struggle with like self-worth and self-value. And I feel like my faith reminds me and grounds me to not get too caught up in this. Like this is a fun place, but at the end of the day, like I see it as a job or an opportunity that like I show up to and then I walk away and then I do my real life and I get my real food somewhere else, which is like from my Bible, from my other friends who are believers, from scripture, from, you know, sermons and things like that. So I feel like my faith has been integral in keeping me humble and keeping me balanced in this like very fast paced kind of world that's like me. And I also think it has helped me to remember like what the main thing is. Like when God gives you people that you get to steward over, um, where you get to use your voice to share your messages or whatever the case may be, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And I am always aware of that. Like there's a responsibility in having a
Wow.
platform.
I love that you say that because literally there's an Arabic word that I tell myself every day before I get on my stories. It's called amana, meaning like so you hold somebody's like responsibility. You are responsible for someone else's how do I explain this? Basically it translates to responsibility, right? So anytime I get on my stories, I'm like, I'm responsible for anything I share. So I can't lie about a review. I can't make up an experience. I have to be authentic because it's a responsibility I'm given with this platform.
Ooh,
I love that you
so
say
good.
that.
Yes. See, and like I mean, we both feel that way. Like it is an honor to be able to step on a social media platform and to have people that want to hear what you have to say. And it does come with like a lot of like conscious thought and integrity and honor, and responsibility. So I think that's so good.
So the one thing I will say that people usually get wrong about me or my faith is that one, the spoiled apple has spoiled the entire basket, right? Like just because one person did something bad and they were, publicized in the media doesn't mean the entire group of Islam or all the Muslims are bad. There's always going to be one bad person, and I'm not trying to take away what they've done, but I want to say that not all Muslims are violent, not all Muslims are evil. We're good people. If you look at the core essence of Islam, it's like to do good and to be good to others. And one of the things that people always get wrong about me as a Muslim, like hijabi woman, is that I'm oppressed. And it's far from that. I like this choice of hijab is my own.
Mm,
My parents never forced me. I actually started wearing this before my mom did. So my mom, an older woman of like 50s, never wore it. But I started when I was pretty young, like 12, and she said it's your choice. My dad was actually a little bit worried. He's like, you don't have to, you're so young. But like that goes to show that we're not oppressed. It wasn't forced upon us. Um, and then lastly, being modest isn't a negative thing. I think people have like romanticized like the more you show, the more free you are, right? Like the more freedom that you have. But it's the total opposite for me. The more I can cover and what I choose to show others is freedom for me. So those are two things that I feel like people usually get incorrect about me, my faith, or how I dress.
A First of all, I love kind of the core values of like Muslim culture, how you said it's like to do good and to be good to people, because I feel like the two things that God has called us to do, or that Christ called us to do, is to love God and to love people. So to
Yeah.
love God and to be good and kind to people. So I feel like those are two things that we have in common. Um, Evangelicals are something else. And sometimes it's really tough to be connected to the faith, because there's so like it I listen to you and I hear you say like, one rotten apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch, and how people like are fearful of Islam or Muslim culture. And I think about like America and how it's built as like a Christian country, and I think about all of the Christians in this country that have done terrible things,
Yeah.
and there's so many of us running around, right? So it's just like wild that we're not afraid. I mean, I think about being a Black American who is an evangelical Christian, when that faith kind of was the foundation for slavery in the United States. Like it built, like that's so crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
that's more scary than anything. um I think that's a little bit of like just a connection to what I'm listening to you say. But I think some of the things that people get wrong about my faith is that, or when they meet me and they hear that I'm a Christian, I think they automatically believe that I'm going to be judgmental about things that are controversial, are tough, that I'm not willing to speak out on certain things, or maybe that we all believe the same thing. And even though I'm a Christian and I have like specific views and thoughts on things, I don't usually share kind of the same mindset around certain things as people do. I feel like I'm a little more moderate. I feel like my upbringing and the things that I've experienced in life have made me a little more understanding of why people make choices that they make, or why people do things that they do. And I think that especially since 2020, a lot of Christians are realizing that there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do, that people have taken scriptures and that they have used them to manipulate and to gaslight people, and that maybe like the Christian faith has um, maybe not been communicated in the best ways always. Um, I think the other thing that people may get wrong about Christians is that we're all the same. We're just not. Like there are so many different kinds of teachings and things and ways that people do things. And um I mean, there's so many different kinds of churches and so many different kinds of denominations and so many different kinds of practices. Churches that don't believe music should be in church, and churches that believe that music is the heart of church, and people who do communion every week, and people who do communion once a week. I mean, there's just so much around the faith. And I think if people were able to get to know people and see where they stand, instead of like thinking that the whole faith is monolithic, that we'd probably go like a little bit further.
That's deep. I don't really know much about Christianity, but that kind of paints a little bit of a picture of like how diverse and vast the religion can be.
Baptist, Pentecostal, non-denominational Christians. I mean, there's just so many different.
Are
There's
the
just,
differences small or they're major?
I mean, it just depends. Like is it a spirit-filled church? Is it not a spirit-filled church? Is it a church that believes in healing versus a church that doesn't? Like there are quite a few differences. Like I've been in a church, I grew up in a Church of Christ, which they didn't believe that women should be leaders in the church, and communion was every week, and there was no instruments in the church. I think things have changed, like, but I think depending on what part of the country you're in, the way that people worship or express is different. And then I ended up at a non-denominational Christian church in my early adulthood, where there were music and there was healing, and it was very, you know, kind of like Hillsong-ish, like lots of like bells and whistles and all the things. And now I'm in this season of life where I need meat. I don't need milk and honey. Like I need something that I can hold on to, that's going to fill me up. And so I spend a lot of time listening to pastors who are diving deep and and journaling and like spending time in the word and really dissecting, like instead of someone telling me about my faith, I'm now seeking and asking God to talk to me directly and to teach me directly. And so I feel like where you are in your life too depends on like what you get or where you go. And it's like a, I don't know if this is true for you, because I don't know, you know, you probably learn about your faith tradition and then that's your faith tradition. It carries you through life, where it's like I feel like my Christian walk, as I've grown, where I go to get fed or where I go to learn has changed and evolved.
Wow. So I think the core of it, like the principles and the pillars have always retained and stayed the same because we don't have variations of the Quran. So I know like you guys have like the Old Testament, the New Testament. So there's no variation for us. So no matter what journey I'm on, it's more like an individual struggle I'm dealing with. Like, oh, can I be modest today? Can I not be modest? Can I eat chicken outside? Do I have to eat zabiha or halal? That's like an internal struggle, I feel like. But learning new things, I feel like it's always been the same. It's just a matter of understanding it better as I get older in different parts of my life.
So Lent is basically a 40-day period prior to Easter. And Easter is a holiday that we celebrate where Jesus died on the cross. And then 3 days later, he rose again. So Easter is the day that Jesus rose again from the grave. And Lent is basically a time that Christians set aside to just reflect on Jesus's sacrifice. 40 days is like really significant in the Bible. There were 2 times in the Bible where 40 days of fasting took place. And that was, well, not 40 days, but 40 is like a significant number. So the Israelites, they wandered in the desert for 40 years, and that was like them prepping to like go into the promised land. And then Jesus fasted for 40 days before he went to the cross. And so over the 40 days of Lent, we basically fast or we give up something that we love. So that could be like social media, chocolate, maybe a habit, a bad habit. And you take that time where you like crave that thing and you dedicate it to disciplining yourself around like prayer or reading the Bible or something like that. And usually Lent starts on what people know as it's called Shrove Tuesday, but I think in America, like people delineate it by Fat Tuesday, which is a part of Mardi Gras, and then it ends on Easter.
Wow. Okay. I'm actually shocked because Ramadan is almost the same thing for so ours. So you said Lent is a time to reflect and to give up anything that you feel like you want to give up and dedicate instead that time to God and bettering yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
Ramadan, the whole purpose of Ramadan is exactly the same thing. It's a time for introspection, right? And we're trying to get closer to God by giving up things. For us, it's basic necessities like water and food. And during that time, we're expected or we should be replacing that time with dedication and remembrance and reflection of God. And it's just a time for spiritually cleansing yourself, mind, body, soul. And I feel like you guys are trying to achieve exactly the same thing. It's insane. So you're doing it for 40 days. We're doing it for 30. The similarities between our religions is amazing. So
It
you're Christian.
actually is. Yeah. I'm actually in the middle of Lent right now. It
Okay.
started a couple weeks ago, and you go Monday through Saturday, but you get Sunday off. So it's like 6 days a week, all day. But then on like Sunday, you get to like relax a little bit, I guess. And
Lucky
I
you
know
guys.
that and I know Ramadan is coming up, right?
It is. It starts on the 22nd of March. And we fast from dawn to sunset and we get no breaks. So there's no Sunday or Saturday break for us.
So you're heading out of the country. Where are you going? I'm just nosy.
I'm going on pilgrimage actually. Talking about all this
Really?
religion. I am. I'm going for Umrah. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I
It's
haven't.
it's where we go on pilgrimage. It's a part of the pillar of Islam. So Islam has 5 pillars. One of the pillars is fasting. One of the pillars is to do Hajj or Umrah, which is like the walking around the Kaaba, which is in Mecca. So I'm going for that spiritual journey, and it's going to be intense. There's like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people there right now, and we're all kind of like walking in the same area. Um, So I'm
Have you
nervous, but
ever done this before?
I have. I've done it twice before, but I've gone in like non-peak season, and this time it's just like peak season. People always try to go before Ramadan because they want to be spiritually cleansed before the month. So it's gonna be jam-packed.
I mean, I know this is like sacred, but like, are you going to be sharing any of this? Like,
Yeah, I will be a little bit. I'm making an intention not to pick up my phone and camera as much. I'm definitely not taking my vlogging camera and I'm not taking my laptop, which is why I'm trying to like film and edit this before I leave. But I will be like doing little clips of stories, just because I want to share the experience because not many people get to experience it in their lifetime. Yeah, I will be sharing tidbits.
okay, good. I want to follow along. That's why I asked. This is my own personal reasons. I love this for you. I'm so excited to have been paired with you and to be able to like get to know you through this process. And hopefully, like I'll get to know, I'll become that Christian that's like, oh, that's my girl. Like I love following her. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
likewise.